Welcome to Hey, great shot. This is the Great Shot Podcast, a Cracked Rackets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network production. My name is Alex Gruskin. On tonight's show, we have our final 2024 edition of the Deciding Point, where we break down everything happening in the Division I college tennis world. Of course, given it's our final show of the year, you know what that means. It is award show season. It's time to hand out some hardware for everything we saw unfold throughout the course of what was a fantastic 2024 campaign. Of course, we'll get into everything. Who's the MVP? Who's the guy? Who's the player with the most pro upside? Who improved the most, both player and program-wise this year? Coaches of the year, and so much more. Again, every topic going to be covered. This is your final primer on everything we saw unfold over the course of the last 5 months. And I can think of no better person to help me break it all down than the man who joins me on the show tonight. He's joined me every week we've had a show throughout the course of this 2024 season. He is a man you all know best as the forefather of the college tennis ranks formula predictions, never far from the listed UTR, a lean, mean Michigan Wolverine, the professor. It's Chris Halioris joining me for tonight's award show. Chris, hey, great shot. Welcome back to the show. Before we get into it, just a reminder, this is the conclusion of our 6th season doing this podcast together. 2018 was part-time, but that was the Wake Forest title. 2019, the Texas title. Obviously nothing in 2020. 2021, we saw Florida. 22, 23, Virginia. Now 24 here, TCU. It's our first 4-3 final NCAA-wise together. Was this the best season we've had the opportunity to cover as a podcast?
I mean, it has to be. It just keeps getting better every year. We got to love all the fans that are, and all the, all the connections we've made just grow and grow every year. So, we find new things to do every year, more content to add. It's just, that's the goal. Keep growing the sport and advertising the product, and it's a lot of fun, and it just gets better every year.
More broadcast than ever. Media day was something new. We got to do the NCAA tournament we hadn't had the chance to do before. That was obviously such a blast. And yeah, I came out of NCAAs not only having called 310 matches in 10 days, but I walked away with a bobblehead. I walked away with a Maserati keychain. All the experiences, meeting fans, chatting with coaches, players, obviously seeing this class in particular that we've had the chance to cover some for 4, but a lot for 5 years. It was a great season. Certainly the tennis, and one of the categories we have is best matches. Just as we look more broadly, though, at this season, I do think it really helped that the best matches happened in the biggest moments, right? Some don't weigh national indoors as much as NCAAs, but that final between Ohio State and TCU kind of set the stage for what we saw down the home stretch at NCAAs. And I mean, right away, Ohio State, Columbia set a tone. Obviously, what we got with Tennessee, Texas down the home stretch of that match, how special was that? Virginia fighting their tails off, even though they were shorthanded against Wake Forest. Obviously, semifinals, finals from there at NCAAs. Got a lot of good matches in big moments. We had, Diaz shaving the T in his chest against Kentucky. That was a moment. How about the Kentucky 4-3 against Illinois in round 2? Like, that was a really fun match. Again, I'll get into my full list because I got a bunch of them later, but this was a year where we talked so frequently about the depth, right? And it just felt like week after week, 4-3 matches were delivered to us as fans, gave us plenty to talk about. Obviously, some shockers in terms of upsets along the way as well. This was a really fun year because, again, you had some juggernauts, no doubt, throughout the course of the season. They all got to go head to head in the big matches. In the end, it was kind of, all right, let's roll the balls out. Let's find out who the best is. Obviously, Rodesh aside, but still, really fun year of college tennis. I do think this might have been my favorite of the ones we've done together.
Yeah, I think so too. It was a lot of fun, and I'll tell you what, just the whole the year, the finish in Stillwater, the way we got treated there, everything was fantastic. Which leads me into, before we get into our awards, I have to give 2 of my own awards, Gruskin. So first, I have to start here. Some people have probably heard this, many may have not. We got to do, as a Cracked Rackets crew, all of the broadcasting for NCAAs. You mentioned it. You called 310 matches. Gruskin was the absolute man. He got to call the entire tournament from the team event. He got to call all of the singles and doubles. And then it came down to the fact that they were going to run singles and doubles for the men and women simultaneously. We didn't want to shortchange either side and do a split screen. We wanted to give them their due, full screen for the men and the women. And this man here, even though I love to pick on him, let me have my choice of whether I would take the men or the women. And clearly, I just know the men better. I could do more justice to the men from a broadcasting perspective. So I got to call that was the highlight of my year right there. I got to call the men's final for singles and doubles, all because Gruskin, I told him, hey, it's your show. I'll take whatever you want. You get the call. And he said, no, you take what you want. So I took the men. So the award for letting me do that to you, Gruskin. The second award I got to give, I gave a pre-NCAA tournament award to the best gear package I got, which went to Grant Chen and SMU, hands down. My post NCAA award for a gear package. Let me just say, we're going to start right here, Gruskin.
Look at that. That's
I
beautiful.
mean, the bucket hat, the shirt, and I don't want to say too much about what else was in the package. I'll just do this, and you can make for yourself what else may have been in that package. Mr. Denton, Mr. O'Shea, get this straightened out here. Phenomenal. I'm a bucket hat guy. All of you guys, send me those bucket hats. Phenomenal package post NCAs. But yeah, I mean, tremendous year. It doesn't get any better than what we did this year.
I have a photo on my phone of us from 6 years ago, what we looked like then versus what we look like now. I wonder who's aged more. The answer, sadly, is probably me. It's because you were actually already pretty old when we started. But it's again, I would like to see a before and after. We'll have to tweet out a photo for that as we tweet out the podcast version of this show. But quick primer on tonight's agenda, because it's going to be a little bit different than last night. Yesterday, Jay and I broke down the coaching news. We broke down the transfer news. There's just a higher volume of that news on the men's side, and we want to do it justice, break everything down from the brand new assistants at Florida to obviously the big news, Cooper Williams heading to Duke, and all the other transfer updates we've gotten over the course of the past 3 weeks. Going to do all of that tomorrow on a podcast edition of this show. Again, Chris and I will not only talk about all of the latest men's transfer news, we got news right before this show began. Elena Yu officially heading to Duke from Stanford, so the former San Diego champion, obviously a big addition for the Blue Devils. We got more things to cover, as well as what will be 2 kickoff drafts as of tomorrow night. The men having already held their kickoff draft here today, the women going tomorrow. It's a busy week in the college tennis world. They also handed out the ITA regional awards. So we'll recap all of that on tomorrow's show. Here tonight, we're just going to focus on our Division I men's awards because we got a lot of categories to get through. I know how Chris Halioris is when we try and do an exercise like this. He will argue with me to the last point until we both get our say. Obviously, we both disagree on multiple awards. And so this is always going to be really fun because, as I said yesterday, I'll repeat today. I love award show season. I think it's the best way for us to document everything that unfolded throughout the course of the year. I try to be very thorough in my award ballot, which I sent to Chris for him to make his picks because, again, if you make my award ballot, I like to think it meant you had a special season. I like to think when I look back at this year and I try to tell the story of it, if I look through my award ballot, it will remind me of things of, oh yeah, Holden Coons put up 51 combined singles and doubles wins. I know Wake Forest plays a lot of double headers, but 51 combined wins this year. That Luca Powell was in the high 40s. Like that's why Wake Forest was who they were, able to make a jump. Obviously, there are some bigger names, headlines, Micah Braswell's winning streak, all these other different things that I like to put out across my award ballot. But Chris, that's why I value award season so much. Do you share that same thought?
Oh, yeah, I love it. Here's my wish, Gruskin. I wish
Okay.
I didn't have an actual day job so that I could sit and do the amount of research that it would take for me to really do this justice. So I appreciate you laying out a ton of the research for the foundation. But yeah, it is fun to go back and look through everything that happened through the year and and pick the winners and I do my best even if if I'm very close but could potentially disagree, I have to go another way just so we have something to talk about.
I think this is the 3rd year we've done this award show. I'm pretty sure I still have my 22 and 23 ballots. Obviously, I've got my 24 open now. What I would love, Chris Halioris, wearecollegetennis.com has a lot of space on that website. Can I post my award ballots every year and we just have an archive of it for each season? Because I have them for the men and the women. And so, again, let's try and tell the story in one ballot. I think I do there's like 30 names on all these ballots. Trust me, I don't leave anyone out of consideration, folks. So, again, that would be my request moving forward. But again, we got a lot of awards to get to. Chris Halioris, let's get into it. Let's start with something awfully juicy. The most valuable player. And again, most valuable is a hard thing to quantify. Is it simply the player who puts the most wins on the board? If a player puts that many wins on the board at a higher position, certainly that has to be more valuable, right? I know that's still a difficult thing to quantify, but that has to be more valuable, right, than someone doing it lower in the lineup. Still, if that player is a lock for a certain team and that lock is what helps a team to certain amounts of success, more so than maybe a player having equal amounts of success at a higher position, I think that sort of thing matters as well. JJ Tracy's value to Ohio State, is that more valuable than an Antoine Kornachovink's value to a Florida State? Again, a different conversation than the guy, which we'll get to next. Chris Halioris, I had an extensive ballot as we looked at the MVP, and you and I disagree on this category. So let me lay out my ballot. You tell me if this sounds somewhat reasonable. First of all, honorable mention category, not tier 1 or tier 2. This is just honorable mention here, Chris Halioris. Daniel Milovsky, little bit of a shout. I'm just saying, like, he had a really good year for Harvard at one double spot at the number 3 spot, a reason they were certainly in a top 16 hunt all season long. So just a shout there. I know, first name, extensive ballot. Jack Loudit at Kentucky. I mean, it felt like he clinched everything down the home stretch, and just go look at the numbers. I can go find it right now. I think I have it open pretty close here. Allowed it something like 16 and no, excuse me. I have better than that. 20-6 in dual match play, 13-3 at 5, but all the clinching he did. Think he has to be on the list. How about Dylan Dietrich, who didn't have the luxury of like easing his way in, given the injuries to Montez, given, again, Anders Schulenberg had some struggles throughout the course of this year. He gets an honorable mention. Jack Anthrop, also an honorable mention as well. I think he went 26-1 in singles. If he had more doubles wins, I think it was only 10. He would have been higher on this list, but that's my honorable mention. Anthrop, Dietrich, Laudet, Milovsky. Now we get into tier number 2. Chris Halioris. This is where the fun begins. I promise I'll let you talk once I get through this. Luca Pau put up 47 points, lost 2 singles matches all year long in dual match play. Was really good at the 3 double spot with Tachi as well. 47 points speaks for itself. Robert Cash, 42 points for the Buckeyes. Obviously, we know what he is as a doubles piece, NCAA doubles champion. I think it was something like 21-2 at the number 6 singles spot. Those were 2 guys who just missed out on tier number 1, but got serious MVP consideration. The other guys, just because of who they are, Toby Samuel, Elliot Spizzirri, Chris Rodesh. Then sneaky shout outs to Louis Maxted, was a workhorse for an otherwise injured TCU team. Shinsuke Mitsui, Jomo gets all the credit. Mitsui was almost as good at the 2 spot for Tennessee. And Herman Hoyerall, who had an excellent year at the number 4 spot for Arizona. None of those guys were tier 1. Chris Halioris, I have a 6-man tier number 1, but how does that sound for the initial regions of the ballot? All guys fair to give them shouts?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought they're all pretty good. Any name in particular there you think should be elevated? Am I underselling?
We'll get to it when I make my choice.
All right, I like to hear that. Well, then you want to hear my tier 1 names, and you
Let's
tell
hear
me
'em.
is your tier 1 one of these 6 men? I have in my tier number 1, Micah Braswell of Texas, put up 38 points, 38 combined singles, doubles, dual match wins. Jack Pennington Jones of TCU put up 37. JJ Tracy, Ohio State, put up 47 victories. Holden Coons, Wake Forest, teammate semis of indoors and outdoors. Someone needed to be on the tier 1 list. Put up 51 points. Come on now. Jomo, 47 points, playing 1 singles, 1 doubles. And Antoine Kornachovic put up 40 points, 1 singles, 1 doubles. That's my tier 1 list. I got 6 guys there. Is your name on that list?
Half of it.
Wait, half of it is on that list. All right, Chris Halioris, let's get to your pick then. Who is your MVP of the 2024 season?
I have sort of a centaur, if you will.
Wow.
Look, I'm not going to get away from the fact that the most valuable
Wow.
player is the one that means the most to the team that wins the title. And for a team that was decimated during the season with injuries, the guys that were steady goers for that
Wow.
team were JPJ, or let me say Jack, James, John, Earl, Fred, Bob, whatever, Pennington, Jones, and Louis Pew 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 Maxted. I mean, those two, both over 20 singles wins, both 16 wins in doubles. That's what kept that ship going during the year, during the rough times. That's my MVP.
So again, JPJ, 37 combined singles doubles wins. Louis has 36 combined singles doubles wins, very close to one another. I mean, JPJ gets the tier 1 status because he did it at 1 or 2 singles all season long, because he did it at 1 or 2 doubles for the majority of the season as well. Not that Louis, again, those were their 2 workhorses. I think Jack has to be the tier 1 candidate of the 2 of them. Jack won most outstanding player of the tournament. I mean, his value to TCU, very clear. And you mentioned it, particularly given the injuries to Jake, given the injuries to Seb. Like him, Louis, Pedro, Tomas got a lot of work all season long and were counted on in a lot of big spots. And again, then came through in the biggest moments as well. So I can't knock you with the pick, even though it feels like a cop out. I mean, you're just wrong about your pick. And again, Pennington Jones was in my tier 1. I do want to get back to, again, the rest of my tier 1, who I gave consideration to in order of who's not going to get it. Antoine Kornachovic, 40 points on the year, had his moment, flirted with it. Obviously, the guy's status, he'll come up in a little bit. He beat Rodesh to clinch an ACC tournament title, the first for Florida State. That's an MVP type moment. I think it was a 23-2 record in singles at the top spot. Round of 16 for Florida State. Just, again, he loses to Jomo in that match. And so I think right away there, Jomo gets the knock for more valuable. And Jomo put up 45 points playing the one spots for Tennessee this year. Obviously, him and Diaz were a top 8 team. If he beats Spizzirri serving forward up 6-4, 5-2, he might just win this award straight up. Just misses out because, again, he loses out to Spizzirri, who didn't even make tier 1 to me, but could have. Coons, 51 points, inflated by the doubleheaders, but again, a Wake Forest player had to be on this list. He was their workhorse. Him and DK Suresh, number 1 in the country in doubles for a lot of the year, clinched a lot of matches for them as well, got serious consideration. JJ Tracy ending up in tier 1 was inevitable. Like, he's been flirting with this for really 4 years now. Chris Halioris, he put up 47 points for the Buckeyes, played everywhere in doubles. Was an anchor for them at the number 3 singles spot. Obviously didn't finish his match with Pedro, but I mean, Jurasek flipping that match, you feel like that's how TCU gets through because, man, are you going to bet against JJ Tracy in a third set? Never. He was that good for the Buckeyes all season long, All-American, singles, doubles. It kind of represented, again, how good they were, their depth onwards. From Tracy onwards, you just weren't beating the Bucks until TCU managed to do it. Had to have a Buckeye on this list. He was the one. But there's only one pick here, Chris Halioris. It's Micah Braswell, who has to be number 1 on this list. And I didn't know he was a lefty.
I was going to say we got a left
Shout out to Micah Braswell. That's how good he was moving forward. Braswell put up 38 points, went undefeated in singles. Like, they started the match up 1-0 because you knew he was winning wherever he was playing. And obviously he was at the number 2 spot for this team. And him making that jump to, no, I am at the very worst, the second best player in the country. And, again, watching him overwhelm people with his pace, the 3-set comeback against Fernley in the final, he wins in the quarters, he wins in the semis as well. He just continued to come through. The winning streak got to 37 before he gets knocked out by the eventual champion, Planine. Again, yeah, they lost in the final of the NCAAs. I get that. But the reason they, even through the early season struggles, managed to sustain is because Micah Braswell was that guy from start to finish all season long. And he was just the most valuable player, I thought, of the year. Like, he was the guy you wanted in your lineup because you knew it was a point on the board.
I mean, I'm not going to argue. You know what I think about Micah. So, we'll get to that later in the show.
Well, I think I win this category. I think my pick is better than yours. I think Micah Braswell was more valuable to Texas than JPJ was to TCU this year. Now, if you say the combination of 2 players, how can I argue that? Because then you get 2. Yeah, 2 is always more valuable than 1.
Yeah, it was.
Give me Micah and Elliott then, and I win.
Half a cop. No, the problem was, obviously, and we've talked about this before, you can make your argument for what most valuable means in many different ways. Most valuable to the team, the best lock point, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, I just look at this as in the end, in the big picture, what helped, I say, hey, TCU wins the title. What helped them win the title, especially when they were banged up with guys during the year. And so I say what's most valuable to me is what kept that team afloat. I'm not going to argue that Micah wasn't the most valuable guy on the Texas team either. I'm good either way.
Well, I'm glad you bring up that element because I think that applies to the guy conversation more so than the most valuable point. Because again, I think Micah putting Texas up 1-0, it's just like, man, they are that good. And the depth they, GA pretty much made it 2-0. Texas as well. He could have gotten a shout in that conversation. I think that in terms of the conversation, trying to quantify and qualify value, perhaps looks a little bit more, but I'll start with my pick in the guy conversation on this theme. And look, again, I had a long list of candidates for the guy. I always do. Certainly some guys we mentioned earlier. Joe Monday has to be in this conversation. JJ Tracy, I think, has to be in this conversation. I think Jake Fernley has to be in this conversation. Now, again, he loses to Micah in that final, so Micah also in this conversation, a notch above him. But I mean, Jake, when he played to clinch over Elliott during the regular season, how good he was against Cannon in the National Indoor Final. Like, Jake was a guy all season long for this team. Elliott has to be in this conversation. Rodesh, when healthy, has to be in this conversation. ACC, of course, as well. Did you see Iñaki in the quarterfinals? I mean, that is what the guy is all about. And I should give Iñaki the guy for that performance alone. I want you to know he finished second on my list. But to your point, Chris Halioris, this is where I think Jack Pennington Jones, he's not the MVP. He's the guy coming out of this year. Because through it all, again, this team just had a swagger to them. They had a looseness. And obviously, we talked about it's not just Jack, it's all of the guys. Go look at the intro video, from a Louis Maxted to a Pedro to a Jake to obviously a Luke Swan, and even their freshmen, Julian Alonso and Duncan Chan and Kai Karinas, all kind of buying into the culture. Kind of felt like it started with Jack up top. And again, him beating Elliott in that moment in 3 sets and giving them that lead. And, again, coming through in doubles in the final as well after coming up short the day before against Ohio State. To me, he was the guy for the best team. And in a year where there was some uncertainty around the guy, right? Like, again, felt like Johannes Monday had his opportunity to seize the guy for himself, serving for it 6-2, 4-5-2. We find out after the fact he's dealing with a stress fracture during that as well. But Elliott manages to come back, and now it feels like Elliott's the guy, and they lose the doubles point to Wake Forest. But Elliott ends up beating Maroney, and again, they're on this comeback trail. And now again, is it Elliott? Is it Micah? And then TCU goes and beats them and beats Ohio State, and Jack gets wins in both matches. And again, to me, what separates him from a Jake, he just played more frequently throughout the course of the year. What separates him from a Louis, literally 1 point, and the fact that he played a little bit higher in the singles lineup than Louis. He was the guy on the best team, and in a year with otherwise uncertainty surrounding the guy, that's who I go with, Chris Halioris. That's my argument. What do you think?
Hey, look,
I'm good at this shit. This is award show season. I take it seriously.
A couple years running. And part of it is just that, we love to pose the opposing argument to each other. Yeah. So we flip-flopped, and we're going to do it again. I'm going to tell you, my guy, and I told you this in Stillwater, I even, with Micah in arm, pointed to him and said, Gruskin, this is what the guy looks like when we were inside the indoor facility there. That to me is the guy, because Texas looked at him and said, look, he didn't lose a single dual match. Can you make the argument that makes him the MVP? Sure. To me, I look at him and I say, everybody on that team knew we're going in up 1-0. That's our guy. We are just not losing that spot. And he elevates. And sure, again, I put JPJ up there and on the other category. No arguments, but to me, when somebody goes, 30 whatever and in dual match play, it's just ridiculous. He's the guy.
So I agree with your argument entirely as it relates to MVP. The difference in the guy is it also elevates the team to that final step. And that's what JPJ was able to do with Gorsny in doubles. Obviously, he gets the win over Elliott in singles as well. He was the guy on the best team, ultimately the NCAA championship winning team. But look, we'll call that like a split. We agree on these two categories, even if we categorize things differently. Now, you copped out and went with Maxted as well in your MVP category. So I'm actually going to call it 2-0 Alex as we look at the award show thus far.
Well, but I wouldn't call, okay, yes, it's a cop out. The problem is and we'll get to this later when we go down, the lineups in order. I had to.
That's where we're headed next, so I like it.
Yeah, but and I didn't, spoiler alert, I didn't put Louis in there at 4, but there's no way I could get through all these awards without giving him something because of what he meant to that team, which is why I had to put Louis in there with JPJ.
Hey, Louis Maxted made my MVP ballot, given again how good he was match in, match out, and how many points he put up or victories in dual match play for his team. Again, the guy conversation, Iñaki, Rodesh, Spizzirri, Braswell, Monday, JPJ, Fernley, Tracy were all tier 1 candidates. My honorable mentions. Did you see Philip Planinchek during the NCAA tournament? He beat Kingsley. He beat Micah. He fought off match points against Ozan. He served in forehand everyone to death. He gets a shout. Michael and Ozan get a shout. Holton, after his first set against Michael Zhang, was the guy in the moment. Obviously, wasn't able to close it out, but gets a shout. Toby Samuel as well, who has been in the guy conversation for 3 years now. We'll retire him from that, but I look forward in 5 years to calling him one of the more underrated players of the 2020s, Chris Halioris, because you know that's coming. All right, ideal lineup. This is how we did it yesterday. Let's start doubles, Chris Halioris. Your picks. I'll give you my list of candidates first as well, and then you tell me who you ultimately went with. And I'm not looking at the board yet, I promise. Number one doubles position. Here were the candidates I had. I had Cash Tracy, Kun Suresh, Diaz Monday, Mercer Lapidat, and Johns Rodinas. No TCU representative. They were pretty good at the number one spot, 17-5 all year long. The problem was it was just a different team every different week, so you really couldn't pick a representative for them. Who'd you go with at number one?
There's just no way I can get away from Cash and Tracy. I mean,
Yeah, I went with them as well.
yeah, I mean, how could you not? They're just so good. They did it all. Hopefully, we get to see them, do something really good come August. But yeah, they were just great. I can't get away from that.
All-American champions only played 10 dual matches together. Now, we don't have a match minimum qualification, excuse me, for our all-ideal lineup. 8-2 in dual match play, but 20-3 overall in the year. NCAA doubles champions as well. Yeah, I think they were the obvious number one doubles pick. Number two doubles, Chris Halioris, we think alike because I had as the nominees Boulay Luchanik for Ohio State, who had an up and down year, but went 8-3 at the number two double spot. Obviously, beat the team we both ultimately picked here. I went with PY and Telluri, who had a really good year for Texas when they were both healthy, 11-4 overall in the year nominees. Mitsui and Pajonka put up a bunch of wins for Tennessee. I'll track down that number in a moment. LP and Rayani for Florida State had a really good year. But we both went with Gorsny and JPJ. Why'd you pick them, Chris?
Yeah, look, I mean, relative to the three spots we had to pick from, I thought this was probably relatively it was the weakest in terms of I thought they stood out the most. It's just I could make some decent arguments against all of the other teams, but my gosh, Gorsny when healthy, and he doesn't even have to be super healthy to play doubles, is just unbelievable. The hands are tremendous. The IQ of JPJ, these guys were just they were just fun to watch. And I don't think it was even in the same league as the rest of the people in that conversation.
I'm starting to see your singles lineup. I peeked ahead. I apologize. I'm happy. We're going to have some disagreements. So this is very fun. We have no disagreements as it relates to doubles. And again, I think the candidates for the number three spot, by the way, Mitsui and playoff P, Philip Pajonka, 17-3 overall in the year, 15-3 at two doubles. They got serious consideration for me at the number two spot because I wanted a Tennessee representative, wasn't ultimately able to find it. He's the guy, and he has Seb Gorsny as his partner. They're my pick at number two doubles. I know they lost to Luchanik and Boulay. How they rebounded was everything. That's my pick. I agree at three. I think Boulay, Anthrop, and Kingsley have to be the pick. Now, again, they didn't play a ton together, but undefeated when they did, 6-0 overall. The other options, Harper and Braswell, obviously they weren't able to play together given the injury to PY, but they were very good all season long for Texas. I believe the number was 9-1 at the number three spot. Would have been a good option there. Pau and Taki racked up, I think it's like 19-5 overall at the number three double spot. Kiefer and Dietrich for UVA, sneaky good there. Harazaki and Tronson of Oklahoma, sneaky good team all season long. I think Anthrop and Kingsley, though, have to be the pick, right?
Yeah, I mean that's my pick. I gave serious consideration to the Harper Braswell combo. I mean that was very very good, but Kingsley and Anthrop just I mean, and it's hard again. I feel like we're in the same spot every year picking. It's hard, you're wanting to almost pick three Ohio State doubles teams every year. It's just the way it rolls. But yeah, they were just definitely the best three dubs team.
Well, I can't wait to assassinate your singles lineup because
Oh,
wow, are your picks horrible.
Ah,
And I'm very excited to get into the holes that we're going to pick into them. No, first of all, your picks are excellent because the margins are so thin, but you have the wrong picks. I agree with some of the people commenting right now in the chat who disagree with you, Chris. Look, I want you to know I had Johannes Monday slotted in my number one spot in pencil. And the nominees I considered seriously, and there were honorable mentions: Martinez at Oklahoma, Nishesh at Stanford, Murphy, Cassone, Oliver Tarvett, Michael Zhang, Ozan all had great seasons. But you could pick what this ultimately came down to was 5 different players. Chris Rodesh gets eliminated because he lost to Antoine Cornut-Chauvink, gets eliminated because he lost to Johannes Monday, gets eliminated because he lost to Elliot Spizzirri, gets eliminated because he was the MVP, Chris Halioris, on your ballot, the MVP on your ballot. And to leave off Jack Pennington Jones, I called him the guy. That's ultimately why I replaced him with Joe. And again, Joe was dealing with a stress fracture during the tournament. Everyone's banged up during the tournament as well. Joe was my pick in pencil to start my conversation, but I went with Jack Pennington Jones. Why'd you ultimately go with Joe?
I mean, okay, look, you're talking ideal singles lineup, right? What does your singles lineup have to do? They have to play the entire season. Tell me how many matches each of those guys lost the entire season.
Okay, you want it? Here's the number. Johannes, or first of all, Jack Pennington Jones overall in the year, dual match play, 21-4. Johannes Monday overall on the year, 24-3 in dual match play at the top spot. Both
Yeah.
very good. Very good.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously we know what Joe was dealing with at the end. I'm not going to argue against Jack anywhere, but if you're going to make me pick my ideal lineup and I'm drafting my team, I'm taking Joe. Like he's just not going to lose
I
more
can't.
than Jack is. Jack will lose. There is zero, I mean, absolutely zero question Jack's going to lose more than Joe.
Okay. I don't disagree with Joe's a great pick. Again, I almost picked him. If he's your MVP, the way he was the guy for me, he has to be your pick at one here. So that's what makes it crazy in the end. But hey, I love it. Look, again, 2 and 3 we agree on. Let's go through it quickly. 2, Micah Braswell. There was only one candidate. It was Micah Braswell.
Yeah,
But
pretty easy ballot there.
3 honorable mentions. Jake Fernley, who had an excellent year. Shinsuke Mitsui, who again 20-6 at the 2 spot. That's a really good season for the junior, who's always flashed that sort of stuff. And then give me NCAA and Yaki. Like, I don't care what sort of shoulder he has. NCAA and Yaki deserves a shout out at the number 2 spot. Again, 3 came down to 3 guys. Dylan Dietrich had a really good year for Virginia. I think at the number 3 spot, Dietrich overall in the year, 8-1, 20-6 in dual match play. JJ Tracy, I mentioned the numbers for him, absolutely ridiculous. 20-1 at the number 3 spot, 27-1 overall in the year. Who was the 1-2? Chris Halioris is the guy we agree. It has to be the spot here. 22-2 in dual match play. Freshman G.A. Bailly, who is just a lock down the home stretch for this Texas team, and is the guy I would pick at the number 3 spot as well.
Yeah, I don't know how you get away from him. I mean, I think, I look here's the real question for me is are these, in both of them, are both PY and GA coming back? I want to see him another year. I think the talent there for especially on the GA side is incredible. He's a tremendous counterpuncher, needs a little more work. I can see arguments. I could have seen an argument, like you said, I could have gone JJ Tracy there. I just think that especially with all of the competition they played, I just love what GA did. I don't, and again, I'm looking at it as you're asking me to draft my team. Who am I taking? I just think he's such a tough out, no matter who you play. I'm going to take GA.
I agree. And look, you have Anthrop, Bernie Stevenson. We'll get back to your picks in a second. Again, let me show you my picks here. We agree on the doubles: Cash and Tracy, Anthrop, Kingsley, Pennington Jones, and Gorsney, my picks. I went JPJ at the number 1 spot. I had him as the guy. Has to be number 1. By the way, TCU won the NCAA championship, and you don't have any representation of them in your singles lineup. That to me is absurd. We agree about 2-3. Number 4, here's the number for all of you. Jack Anthrop in the 2024 season, 18-1 at the 4 spot, 26-2 overall on the year. Again, Louis Maxted, 20-5 overall in the season. He was really good. Charles Cosnay for Kentucky, really, really good season, 16-4 at the number 4 spot. And then again, shout out Herman Hoyer, who had a really good year, 21-3 overall, 13-2 at the number 4 spot. I think you got to go with Jack Anthrop. The way he flipped that match in the semifinals, coming back 3 sets against Louis Maxted, who, of course, then got the win in the final himself. Anthrop's the pick. We have no disagreement there. 5 is interesting. If he's healthy, you have to pick Sebastian Gorsny. We saw him beat Alex Bernard, who is really the only other option here. And again, another ridiculous season for Bernie. 25-1 overall in the year, 9-1 at the number 5 spot. Luca Pau, you got to give a shout out to in this scenario, 25-2 overall, 14-0 at the number 5 spot. Hugo Hashimoto, Jack Laudet, the other candidates you'd consider here for the all-ideal team at 5. Gorsny's the pick. You saw him beat Bernie in straight sets. Like, he has to be the pick.
I mean, and we saw Bernie beat him last year, and in both cases, one of the guys was a little hampered.
Not
Look,
unfair.
I mean, I looked at this one. I'm with you, and I sort of went just an opposite way so we could have opposite picks here. But look, my problem with the Gorsny pick is if you're making me pick and I'm going to play for a season, I don't think Gorsny's healthy for an entire season ever. And that's part of the problem I have. A fully healthy Gorsny, yeah, I think there is definitely more upside, which is a different category that we've got, right? But there's more upside, I think, in the Gorsny game than there is in the Bernie game. But at a college level, number 5, you want me to grind out an entire year and try to win a national championship? I mean, we saw what Bernie did. Yeah, he did lose that match to Bernie, but he lost one match all year. I don't think Seb can say that. If I'm trying to do that and I just need you to go out there and win your matches all year to get us there, that's why Bernie's my guy.
I understand your argument. It's a very fair one to make. I want my ideal team to represent why things looked like they looked at the end of the year and what separated TCU down the home stretch. How well Jack played at 1, how well Seb was playing at 5, and the fact that they got to play Seb at 5 coming off of injury. My ideal team reflects that. Again, you went Eli Stevenson at 6. He was one of my nominees. He, I think it was 13-1 overall, 12-1, excuse me, at the number 6 spot. Cleve Harper, 6-0 when he was asked to play number 6, and I thought, why not sneak him there since that's where he was at the NCAA tournament. Henry Ruger had a really good year for Columbia as well. For me, this came down to 2 guys, though. Could go Holden Coons, and I know you had Stevenson, but for me, I went either Holden Coons, who, again, ridiculous season, racked up ultimately a 25-4 record, 11-1 at 6, or Robert Cash, 21-2 overall, only 6-1 at the number 6 spot, but still, I thought you'd go Coons or Cash. I went Holden Coons in the end at my number 6 spot. Again, he was really why Wake Forest was who they were, match in, match out, and felt like he clinched so many of their 4-3 wins. I think I'm 3 for 3 in awards here, Chris Halioris. You want to make the case here for Stevenson?
Well, of course you do. Yeah, they're your picks. Yeah, look, I mean, I generally try for the same reasons. It's tough to argue on to some extent because I just argued against Gorsny for the fact that he can't stay healthy, and Eli Stevenson missed like a month because he couldn't stay healthy.
Versus Coons, who literally played the double headers as well.
Yeah. So I'm kind of talking out both sides of the mouth here, right? But I got to see too much Eli Stevenson and the fact that look, he lost one match all year, and it was to Diaz in like his I don't know first or second match. I think probably second match back post injury from a hip thing that wasn't easy to come back from. I mean, obviously one of the more memorable moments of the year, but
well, also just quickly on that, sorry to interrupt you. I was home for a couple of weeks, got to hang out with my little brother. We talked some college tennis. We both agree one of the 5 most memorable moments of the year, not most memorable matches, but memorable moments of the year. And why I don't hate you having Stevenson on your team is after he was up big in the first set against TCU, ends up winning a breaker. Never in doubt. Never in doubt. And he just starts yelling it. That was one of my 5 favorite moments of the year. I was like, God, I like this kid.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind you having him here.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I saw enough of him to just know that
Yeah,
if I was going to put a guy there, and he's a freshman, which I'm generally not super fond of
sure.
sticking there, right? But he was just so impressive, and I talked all year about, raved about the 4.56 from Kentucky and the 4.56 from Ohio State, and you kind of looked like silly picks coming down the stretch when both schools got beat up at 4.56 at the final site a little bit, but yeah, I couldn't get away from putting him there. And certainly no disrespect to Coons. He had a tremendous season, coming over from James Madison to Wake at the 6th spot there. I wouldn't argue with that at all. I just saw so much of Eli and couldn't have been more impressed with a freshman in that spot that I couldn't keep him out.
Well, again, I like that you find a way to work in Tennessee, who is really solid all year long. Kentucky, undefeated SEC season. Like, I'm glad they're represented in your lineup. Again, where we disagree, 1, 5, and 6. Chris has Joe Monday, Alex Bernard, Eli Stevenson. We agree Braswell, GA, Anthrop for the 2, 3, 4. We agree on doubles as well. Again, I went JPJ at 1, Gorsny at 5, Holden Coons at 6. I like the broader representation you have. I think TCU, Texas, Ohio State were pretty clearly the 3 best teams all season long, given the injuries that Virginia suffered just throughout the course of the year. And so, again, that they're so heavily represented that you sneak in the other semifinalist, Wake Forest. I think I win. To those of you tuning in live, please do let us know in the comments who wins the ideal lineup, because truly this is the one. This is the most competitive category. MVP, the guy, it's pretty similar between us, but this is where things get real. So do let us know. That said, again, those first 3 categories are obviously where we want to spend the most time because they're the most reflection of the top line things that happened all year long. But let's move over now to best doubles point, Chris Halioris. I had 4 nominees for this category. I think we agree on the winner here. Wake Forest, who was very good. Again, DK Suresh Coons, number 1 for the majority of the year. Taki, Powell at 3 were awesome. Texas, who after they switched their doubles lineup to Spizzirri, Walty, Braswell, Harper at 3. I think they lost like 2 or 3 doubles points all along. TCU, they win the doubles point in the final. It separates things. Or Ohio State, who we both had 2 representatives of in our ideal lineup. Chris Halliors, who'd you go with for best doubles point?
Yeah, I really wanted to say Ohio State because we were so strong on Ohio State doubles, but I still think the point as a whole is Wake Forest.
I agree with you. So let me make the numbers case here. First of all, Ohio State 66 and 22. They won 75% of their double sets all year long. Wake Forest 69 and 24. They won 0.742. So an eighth of a percentage point off of Ohio State. Here's why it was more important to Wake Forest, and this is why they win the award for me. And Chris Halloris, you can tell me if you agree or not. I watched Ohio State lose 3 doubles points and win the national indoors. Wake Forest does not get to the semifinals of NCAAs and indoors without being up 1-0 on some teams, without knowing, hey, Suresh and Coons are probably winning. And again, they go 24 and 4 overall in the year. Pau and Tachi 18 and 5 at the number 3 spot. They had a path to a 1-0 lead. And then again, they're going to get Coons. They're going to get Pau at the 6 and 5 spots in singles. They only need one of their top 4. Their pathway was most reliant upon doubles, and they went furthest with it. So that's my argument for why they win this award.
Yeah, 100%. I talked about this leading into the end of the year and into the NCAAs. Wake Forest was barely above 500 in aggregate in the top 3 single spots. Like
Yeah.
they were like right around 500 at 1 and 3 and maybe a little bit better at 2, but they really needed that doubles point, and it was definitely more critical to them. We're saying best here, but yeah, I think, and the other thing is I just saw too many cases, like you said, like at indoors. Look at Ohio State losing doubles points. They went through a streak early in the year where they weren't necessarily winning doubles points. I just felt a little more solid, even though I love the individual teams on paper, which is why I put some of those, the 1 and 3 dubs teams from Ohio State in the best dubs team. But from a point overall, they just found some ways to lose some of those points that I didn't think they should have. I liked the doubles point at Wake better.
They finished second again on my ballot. A lot of teams were also pretty good at doubles. NC State, Tennessee. Again, there are a bunch we could have listed, but Wake Forest ultimately the winner of the best doubles point on both of our award ballots. Freshman of the year is interesting. And again, some shout outs need to go out to some really good players. Paul Inchauspe. I mean, my offseason plan is to learn how to pronounce your last name. My friend, the freshman at Princeton, he finished top 35. He was really good all season long. Honorable mention Teddy Winters over at Pepperdine, Colomansi at Oklahoma, Eli Stevenson at Kentucky, Philippi Jonka, playoff P at Tennessee. Devin Badenhorst came out so hot for Baylor. My ballot came down to 6 different guys. Jack Loudon at Kentucky, all the clinches, 16-4. Dylan Dietrich, the Eagle, come on now, at UVA, provided us our best moment, Chris, in Stillwater. Trevor Svida was really good quietly for SMU all year long. Obviously, Cooper Williams at Harvard. Luca Pau, just because 24-2, I believe I said was the singles record. Or 25-2. Come on now, that's crazy. 47 points on the board. Or G.A. Bailly, who finished 22-2 overall in singles, and again was just such a lock for that Texas team. A sure point on the board at a higher spot. Chris Halioris, who was your pick for freshman of the year?
Gotta go GA. I
So we
mean,
agree on this. Make the case.
yeah, look, I actually thought it was a little rough start. I think his first match was probably that Miami Invitational, and he goes down, in the fall, and you're thinking, whoa, this is the guy that's like the top incoming freshman, and what that's a rough start for him. But yeah, I mean, look, you mentioned it, 22-2, playing a little higher in the lineup. My second choice would have been Luca Pau at Wake. Just unbelievable. I mean, he was basically a lock point for them in a spot that I think was, and the reason I almost went there was it was probably a more critical point for Wake than GA was for Texas. Texas had a lot of other ways to get there. I mean, they were solid, 1 through 6. They could have beaten you anywhere. Wake, they were counting on that 4 through 6 spot where he was, but GA just, I mean, just so impressive. You watch him, and I think the combination of just seeing what he did in the dual match season, the fact that you see, I can't help but look at him and think, well, first of all, is he even coming back? Hopefully he is. The pro upside in the guy, when you're comparing, who knows what we're going to be talking about these guys in 5 years. But I just think all of it points to him as, that all signs point to GA. That's why I go GA.
I mean, again, he was excellent. Obviously, Cooper, excellent. I agree. It came down to GA and Luca for me. Luca putting up 47 points is crazy, but GA being a lock that high in the lineup for Texas, a team that had national championship aspirations, as consistent as he was. Yeah, you could just see it, how smooth, how easy everything looked for him. He was just 2 shots better than every opponent that he played down the home stretch. He was my winner for freshman of the year as well. Next category is pretty tough. Chris Halioris. There are a lot of good coaching performances all season long. And I know this is one we disagree on. Look, a lot of shout outs to give out. Peter Cobelt at Nebraska, Scotty Brown at Vanderbilt, Billy Pate at Princeton. I'm blanking on the Cornell coach's name. I apologize. Lloyd Bruce Burgess in year 1 at UCF, George Husak at Alabama, Sean Mamie at Michigan, Andres Pedroso, given all the injuries that they still were where they were throughout the course of the year. Drew Eberly, undefeated till the NCAA tournament at Denver. Bruce Burke, Ty Tucker. Yeah, their teams didn't win the titles, but man, were they good all year long. Clancy, Shields, another step forward for Arizona. Ryan Keckley, Nick Crowell, same things for San Diego, Oklahoma. I do have 5 tier 1 candidates, Chris, and I think both of our winners will be in this tier. Josh Goffey, everything that went wrong with South Carolina. They play their best tennis at the end of the year. They made the Sweet 16. That felt improbable at one moment. They have to be on this list. Tony Bresky, I don't think anyone had him penciled for Final Four indoors NCAAs to go get Pau, Kuhn, Suresh in the offseason and have them contribute that successfully right away. A job well done. David Roditi won the freaking NCAA tournament, finals of the national indoors, top 10 for 10 straight years, obviously on this list. Howard Endelman at Columbia, I think has to be on this list. The job they did hosting the indoors, obviously to make an NCAA quarterfinal, have Michael make a run in the singles. After all these successful recruiting classes, felt like everything finally came together. Then how about Cedric Kaufman at Kentucky? I mean, I heard it from coach after coach in our Sweet 16 press row to flip the roster the way they did and finish undefeated in regular season, conference tournament play, make the final site again. I think that's the tier one. Those five guys, Chris Halioris, who's your winner?
Yeah, my winner came from your tier one, but my winner is Howie Endelman. I mean, look, if I look at the 8 teams that make it to the final site and I lay the rosters out on paper, which is no disrespect from to the Columbia guys, because I've got a history, especially with my nephew, of teams that probably on paper were undermanned, if you will, but as a team they come together. I think he got a team that was on paper underskilled as compared to those other teams. He took them there and he pushed Ohio State to the brink. He got an Ivy League team to the final site for the quarterfinals for the first time ever for any Ivy League team. And just everything that he's done there and getting that program to that point was just amazing to me. And I just can't get over the fact that we're still sitting here saying we had an Ivy League team. Let's go back, 15 years and look at where the Ivy League was in college tennis, to get an Ivy League team to the final site and have Ohio State on the brink of potentially without a Hugo Hashimoto cramp, actually knocking them off and making the Final Four, and then having a kid like Michael Zhang, who's making NCAA finals and doing just everything he did to get that team where they did this year. To me, incredible. I mean, I know all of the candidates you mentioned, tremendous candidates. No one's going to argue with any of them, but I got to go Howie.
All very good picks. I almost went Roditi. He finished just second on my list. I ultimately went Cedric Kaufman. I mean, just to hear every coach during, again, the press row rave about the job he did, and again, to have Loudit, Stevenson come in, contribute that quickly. Cusnet takes a step forward. Body takes a step forward. Lapidat, Mercer, all these guys continue to contribute. Undefeated in regular season conference play, undefeated through the conference tournament is so hard to do. Back to the final site for a third straight year. Kentucky is just in the mix now moving forward. They're a top 8 team, a top 8 program in the recruits they land now as well. And that's a testament to the job Cedric has done. Again, a lot of credit would go to Matt Gordon, I'm sure, from Cedric Kaufman as well. And, obviously we're going to talk assistant coach of the year here in a second, but Cedric was ultimately my pick. A lot of good candidates you could have picked from assistant coach of the year. I had my tier 1 candidates. I don't think Justin Kronagi gets enough credit. Obviously, Ty is the face and the personality of the operation, but man, Crow is always on the grind, and he's been the partner in crime. I think he has to get a shout out for this award. Ryan Littman at Texas, same thing. Matt Gordon, partner in crime for Cedric over these last 3 years. Obviously, he's done an excellent job. Brian Baker, the job he did in year 1 at Wake. But I think we both agree the clear-cut choice here. And look, David Roditi would be the first. You see him in the photo deferring to Devin Bowen, his assistant coach. He has to be the pick here, does he not?
Yeah, look, I mean, you can't get one of the 2 TCU coaches not in it.
Yeah.
And with both of us electing to go a different route
Yeah.
on the head coach, there's no question we're picking. And for exactly that reason, David Roditi very, very humbly will tell you, hey, Devin's the guy doing the coach, and Roditi obviously does a plenty himself. But yeah, he will pass all of that credit from the tennis X's and O's and whatnot onto Devin Bowen. And you have to give, for everything that happened this year at TCU, you got to give the assistant of the year coach of the year to Devin Bowen.
Yeah, I think we agree there. Well, then let's move on to the most improved category. And again, we've talked about the cases for a lot of these players, so now we're just handing out awards here. Honorable mention, all of South Carolina, just the job they did. Luciano Taki, really good year. Jamie Connell, Louis Alvarez, Thomas Pulsell, Jay Friend, J.C. Roddick, D.K. Suresh, Robin Catry, Ryan Colby, Daniel Malofsky, Louis Maxted, Michigan's bottom three of Pator and Cooksey, Steiglener, all improvements this year. We noticed, fellas. We saw it. Tier 2, Alex Martinez, Colton Smith, Radu Popaway, Jack Anthrop, who I think took another step forward, Pablo Maswan, Charlotte Kosne, Hugo Hashimoto, Braden Schick, Shinsuke Mitsui. Then we get to the tier 1 candidates. Obviously, Philip Planishek. I mean, he improved in the course of the month of May. NCAA singles champion. None of us saw that coming. Oliver Tarvin at San Diego to make the jump in year 2, top 10 player all season long, has to be in this conversation. Ozan Barris, he was obviously a highly touted freshman. He was a top 10 player all season long this year. And yeah, we knew Micah was good when healthy, but we didn't know he was this good. So that's my final candidate here for most improved. Did I name your winner, Chris Halioris, or did you go off the menu?
You do not have my winner in
All right,
any tier.
give it to me.
I mean, look, it's going to be controversial, but ACC last year,
Interesting.
just what I mean, look, a lot of it was health. He had a lot of back issues last year, couldn't stay healthy, couldn't win the big matches, lost 10 matches last year. What did he lose this year? 4. I mean, he was legitimately in the guy conversation. He beats Rodesh at the ACC tournament to help them win the ACC title. I literally saw this guy go from being questionable. I mean, obviously very good. Finished, I think, top 10 last year. Didn't even use any of the accelerator program, challenger wild cards that he was afforded because even he, I think, wasn't sure that this was his future. Had obviously dealt with a lot of health, injuries, etc. And this year he got in shape, he got healthy, he was winning. I mean, everything went his way. To me, that was the difference for Florida State this year. He was the most improved guy that I saw.
I don't hate it. Like I get your reasoning, and I would use that same reasoning for my most improved player. I just think it's a little bit different because I do think we saw that level at times from ACC last year. Even when he was healthy, we hadn't seen Micah be a Fall Nats champion, win 37 matches in a row, be the most valuable player in that sort of echelon of conversation. And that's who he was all season long. And so to me, to make that jump from good to great or even great to one of the best, that's the hardest jump to make. And he made it this year. And for me, that's why he's my most improved. But I think everything you said holds true for ACC. I just think Micah did it to a further extent. So we don't disagree too much in the logic. That's a good shout out by you. And so, again, I don't hate your pick there for most improved player. Most improved program, there's a lot of obviously nominees. And to run through them again, honorable mention UCLA, Memphis, Cornell, Princeton, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, LSU, Vanderbilt, all programs I thought took a step forward this year. My tier 2 nominees, Oklahoma obviously loses round 2. Man, did they have a great year under Coach Crowell. NC State, great table setting year for 2025. San Diego, another really good year. Arizona, another step forward. They've got, I think, the number 3 recruiting class, according to tennis recruiting as well. And if you watch the kickoff draft, people were afraid to go there. So it speaks to the respect they've built. Florida State, my last nominee in tier 2. I got 4 tier 1 candidates for most improved this year. Wake has been in this conversation before, but to finish semifinals again, I think they took a big step forward, and a lot of that was internal improvements. Columbia, same deal. They went from top 16 to final site. That's the hardest jump to make. UCF, I mean, again, year 1 under Coach Lloyd Bruce Burgess to make that sort of jump. Come on now. And then, yeah, disappointing ending given the losses to Michigan. But Michigan State has to be in this conversation as well as the best season in program history. Those are my 4 tier 1 choices. Chris, is that who you would go with?
Yeah,
Any of them?
I've got to go Michigan State.
I
Yeah.
went with them as well.
Yeah, just the best. I mean, like you said, the best season in program history. Harry setting all kinds of records for the team. It's yeah, it was phenomenal for them. in terms of what they've done, historically. I look at some of the other teams, like you mentioned, UCF had to get strong consideration. A great year for them. Everything that I talked about for Howie and Coach of the Year for Columbia. The problem to me was, Columbia was actually really close last. They've been in that top 16 area, and even UCF has been there recently. Michigan State's just never ever been where they were. So it's not just a sort of to me, just a one single season, even though it was a single season improvement. It's what's happened over just historically for them, by far the biggest jump for that team. And that has to hands down give them to it. I will say one of the teams that I will call it that you didn't mention, especially because of, and I'll admit, propped up by a big win over San Diego. Huge year for Pacific, right?
Sure.
And they've
Great
got
choice.
a very good roster and a chance to keep things going next year. So that was a big improvement from the lower end. But when we're looking at like top 20 teams, Michigan State's my call.
Very good choice. I got no problem with it. Yeah, look, one season is one thing. You got to keep it going, but they're fundraising. They're again, investing in new facilities. Harry is in the mix now with all the different recruiting conversations. Now you got to land players. That's first and foremost what takes a team to the next level. Second round is not where this team wants to live. And you have a window when you have a guy like an Ozan Barris, who certainly seems like he wants to come back for another season. They have to be the pick there because they're just in the conversation now, and they never have been as a program before. So yeah, I think that was the obvious pick there. This is always a difficult one to quantify. Highest pro upside, and there are so many different players you can consider. I have a list of next up, as in we'll consider you next year. Ozan, Nishesh should be considered now, but Ozan, Nishesh, Michael, Oliver Tarvik, Cooper, Anthrop, Gavin, Colton, and Shauspe, Ozalins, Popway, Domingo, Friend, Rodinas, G.A., Svida, Dietrich, Panarin, Winter, Suresh, Gorsny, Lagoo, Artnock, Baden, Horsevelts. Talk about them all next year. Just look at the guys immediately moving to the pros, right? Or at least more likely to be moving to the pros right away, plus Philip Planinchek. Tier 2, I think you're going to be a good pro. I don't know quite how high the ceiling is. Iñaki Montez, Alex Martinez, Andreas Martin, Tyler Zink, Garrett Johns, Murphy Cassone, Cannon Kingsley, ACC, Philip Planinchek if he hits the serve and forehand like that, Toby Samuel, Elliot Spizzeri, and Jack Pennington Jones. I think those guys are all going to be really good. I think they could be top 100. I have 4 guys coming out now that I think are sure top 100 players. You want to hear them?
Let's hear it.
All right, my tier 1. Chris Rodesh, size, speed, serve, can do it all. I think that's a top 100 player. Jake Fernley just made his first quarterfinal of a challenger. And the way people rave about him, and again, the athleticness, the explosiveness, all the things. I think Micah Braswell has to be on this list. Guy just has weapons and the aggressive mindset, moves well, can do it off both wings. Like Micah's on my list. And then I think the guy we agree is the winner of this award. I think Johannes Monday has the highest pro upside. It's the 2 things everything wants to hear. 3 words: tall, skilled lefty. That's what Johannes Monday is. Can hit the big first serve, can hit them in different directions as well. The first forehand, confidence moving forward, so fluid for a guy that size as well. The toughness to get out an injury the way he did down the season's home stretch. I also think we both got to hang out around him. He's a guy you'd believe in. Like just a guy you'd say, this guy is going to maximize whatever he can become, he will become. And I just think with the weapons he has, the physical and the physical skill set, the actual skill set as it relates to the things he can do with a racket in his hand, this is the guy I would say is the best bet to make the top 100 of the current class.
Yeah, there's so many intangibles, if you will, here for Joe that I look at some guys from the past. It's not just about, hey, can you smash a forehand? Can you hit a big serve? When these guys get out of college and they get into the pro game, I'm sure a lot of people have seen Federer's Dartmouth speech at this point, right? Talking about how he only won 54% of the points he played in his entire career. You're going to lose, virtually half the points you play. A lot of the difference that you're going to see between these guys is are you just out there playing, or are you a student of the game, and are you doing everything you can to learn? And I'll tell you what, from what one of the things that about Joe Monday, he was, even after he couldn't even play in the singles tournament, the team event was over, he was walking around talking to everybody possible, getting advice. I saw him saw him spend a bunch of time with the guys from the LTA. I saw him spend time with Steve Denton talking about that, just soliciting advice and trying to figure out hey, what is it you tell me? And he's taking input from everyone, and he's legitimately wanting to work on that game. And this is a guy that's not going to just go out and play. He's going to put the time in. And I think, from the list of what you mentioned there, I think the surefire guys to me are Monday and Rodesh. Fernley is for sure, but with that big sort of asterisk question mark of, is he actually going to stay healthy, and does he have a full shoulder? Can he get there in his pro career? If that guy's 100% healthy, there's no question he's there as well. And I think of those guys in your top bracket, we all know what I think about Mike, and I love him, but of the four, he's just going to need a little more development time at that pro level, I think, than the other guys will. But there's no question that he's going to put that time in, and he'll be there as well. But Joe, to me, he's ready now. And as soon as he gets over this stress issue in the leg, he's going to be out there playing, and he'll be top 100, very, very soon.
I think we both look forward to it, and obviously he knows we're ready to support him however we can. Match of the year. I got a lot of candidates. Let me start with tier 2, because there are 3 clear tier 1 options, but let me start with the tier 2 choices. Virginia, 4-3 at Texas. Weekend number 1 of the season. How is that for a tone setter? Florida State, 4-3 over UVA, ACC tournament final. A lot of rain made that match weird, but certainly a fun result. Kentucky, 4-3 over Tennessee in the SEC regular season. 4-3 over Illinois in round 2 of the NCAA tournament. Tennessee's 4-3 round 16 win over Florida State. Chris, you were on the call for that one. You know how fun it was. Columbia, 4-3 over Arizona, NCAA round of 16. South Carolina, 4-3 over Virginia in Charlottesville right after Virginia beat Texas. Their 4-3 win over NC State in Raleigh in round 2. Pretty fun as well. And then if it mattered to you, Michigan's wins over Michigan State were nuts. Like Big Ten tournament, regular season, 700 people. They belong on this list of things to remember moving forward. I would also throw these 3 in tier 2, but they almost made tier 1. We'll call them tier 1.5. Ohio State's quarterfinal over Columbia 4-2 was an excellent match. Texas 5-2 over Ohio State. Just the significance of that one being like, oh, Texas is back, needs a shout. Texas over Tennessee 4-2, NCAA quarterfinals, really good match. Texas over Wake 4-2 in the semis, really good match. And then Arizona 4-2 over Texas. My little brother was there. He was like, that was the match. Those are all tier 1.5 choices. We'll get to the 3 tier 1s in a moment, Chris. I think that's a fair list, right?
Absolutely a fair list. I mean, for me, a couple of those were hard to say not, some, and it depends on what you want to put in match. To some extent, the magnitude of the match has to come into play. So I heard several recounts of the Big Ten match between Michigan State, and like, I don't know how many it was, 7 team match points maybe that Michigan was down, and the roller coaster of everything that happened there to make it crazy. What I actually watched and called in that Kentucky Illinois match was absolutely insane to cover. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think the magnitude of those matches wasn't, now that Kentucky Illinois could have been, because it was an NCAA match, but they eventually go on. But the magnitude of some of the matches we've got coming, I think, was just bigger and puts them higher on the list.
Yeah, TCU 4-3 over Texas in the regular season, a good one as well. There are 3 tier 1 nominees. They're all very good matches. Ohio State from a doubles point and a fast Fernley JPJ deficit, 3-2 down to TCU, coming back from that, winning 3 through 6, winning the national indoors. That match was fucking awesome. Like, that has to be on the list. I mean, TCU Texas in the final. Obviously, our first 4-3 final since the foot touch in 2013. It was exceptional. Roditi yelling at the crowd to shut up, or you guys are going to lose us the match because we're going to win it here on court. The horns down moment. I mean, Texas's fight throughout. Cleve fighting at 6 the way he did. GA playing like he did. Micah's 3-set comeback against Fernley. Littman screaming at Roditi. Roditi being like, yo, dude, you got to calm down. And Littman being like, you're right, dude. I do have to calm down. That one's on me. And then they're both laughing about it. It was an awesome match. It's not my match of the year. My match of the year is the rematch. TCU 4-2 over Ohio State in the semifinals. The moment those teams walked out on court for the coin toss, it was just on. And you could feel it in the energy, the tension, the crowd. Just it was the level of tennis was so extraordinarily high. Like I talked about this with my little brother while home because we recapped everything extensively. It won't ever get talked about enough because he lost in 3. Cannon played fucking unbelievably well against Fernley. Like Fernley had to work to get that win at 2. And obviously Jack, I thought Justin played a really good match against Jack at 1. Jack was a little better, but like TCU had to freaking work. And then Anthrop flips it, right? Against Louis Maxson. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. Ohio State's going to win because Cash is now serving for it against Jurasek, and he's not blowing that lead. And then Tomas comes back. You know, Gorsny beats Bernie. They were headed to a third, Tracy and Vivez. Again, it's just a rivalry between these two teams. They played 22 national indoor semis. They played NCAA semis last year, indoor finals this year, NCAA semis this year. Like, it's the genesis of the rivalry. When TCU won this match, to me, that's when I was like, all right, they're winning it for sure. Because they overcame a haymaker. Like Anthrop threw a haymaker and Ohio State had them on the ropes. And then all of a sudden, Vivez comes back, Jurasek flips it, TCU is through. The final was really good, but this is my pick, Chris Halioris. What say you?
Yeah, I'm sort of with you here. I
Wow.
even though it's only a 4-2 compared to the 4-3 in the final, yeah, this when Anthrop did what he did, I thought for sure we were looking at Ohio State pushing through, and TCU looked, I mean, obviously they didn't look dead, but they looked like they were in a world of hurt. And then,
They
just
weren't.
yeah, then all of a sudden they looked like, wow, what were we thinking? It was more of a turn where I think the final with Texas was just tight all the way.
It was so good. They're both excellent. The
Yeah, it
best
was
part, I said at the start, the best part of this year were the best matches were in the biggest moments.
yeah, they were just different sorts of matches where I thought that TCU Texas was just that match was tight all the way through. I legit thought at the moment that Anthrop flipped things, I thought TCU was done. And then somehow they managed to find a way to come back and take that 4-2. That to me was just that sort of just set them on the path.
You're absolutely right. It's the fact that there were 2 players who served for matches and neither won their match in Cash at 6 and Maxted at 4. And that's what the Texas match didn't have. Because, yeah, Gorsny and Jonah Braswell traded breaks down the home stretch, but Gorsny was always up in that third set. It was just haymaker after haymaker. Ohio State won the doubles point, and it was like, whoa. And then TC, it was just, again, 2 excellent matches in what was a match filled with extraordinary tennis all year long. I think we agree, though. Match of the year, the semifinal, a 4-2 TC win over Ohio State. Most disappointed program coming out of the year, Chris Halioris, our one glass half empty. My tier 2, Notre Dame, because a year of Domenico to the waist. Baylor's got to be a little disappointed to just not have more momentum going into hosting. Georgia, just again, you would have loved to send Diaz out in better fashion. And had they not been so good at recruiting, that would have been the case. UNC was a weird year, and obviously they lose some players in the portal. Illinois, all the injuries. Michigan State, just to lose to Michigan the way they did. Oklahoma to lose to Stanford. Arizona to not make the final site. And then I think Virginia to lose Rodesh and not be able to go out at least on their own terms to some extent, that had to hurt. That said, those aren't my tier 1s, Chris Halliers, my tier 1 teams. Texas and Ohio State have to be in here. Now, they're not the winners of this award because they had exceptional seasons. Ohio State, national indoor champions. Texas, NCAA finalists, Big 12 regular season tournament champions. Those were 2 exceptional, exceptional teams, but they were good enough to win it all and they didn't. So to some extent, they have to be disappointed. I have USC on this list as well, just because they never missed the tournament and just all the injuries, all the things, they have to be disappointed. But I think we'd agree on the winner of this award. It's got to be Stanford because, again, the talent they brought in to have Basaveretti, Banerjee, and not make a final sight again with those two, Basing still dealing with injuries, but Kang, Godzik, Rivera, Rajesh, like that team should have been in the top 8 mixed more of the season, and they weren't. And like I think this has to be the pick once again.
Yeah, again, it's a team we put in the top 5.
You.
Yeah. Well, I think, uh, as a whole, we probably had them top 8. I don't remember where we put them preseason. I know I had them at 5, and we've subsequently decided we're banning them because
Yeah.
look, if we don't ban them, I'm going to vote them top 5 again. It's just
Ah,
inevitable, just
well,
based on talent on
so
paper.
this is
So
a double award. So I want to do a quick transition here because our next category is the hot seat. And I think they're my winner of the hot seat as well. Not only are they the most disappointed team, but like, again, they bring in another blue chip next year as well. You look for the Stanford recruiting class, and I apologize that I'm blanking on the name at the top of my head. I have it open, so hopefully they're in the top 25. Yeah, Stanford brings in Rezegi, as their pick as well to, replace if Abasaveretti leaves or whomever it is that may leave. But they have to be on the hot seat because, again, like this team has NCAA championship winning talent, blue chip after blue chip continues to go to Stanford, justifiably so. You understand the opportunities it presents. At a certain point, they got to get the job done. Like this team has to get to a final site. Instead, this is a team that continues to have to go on the road on kickoff weekend.
yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. Obviously, I'm personally super disappointed with the way things have turned out because I just think there's so much talent there. Um, I also I look at it and go, yeah, but Goldstein's kind of running with 1998 Stanford money here, and they're never getting rid of him, no matter what. And he manages to pull the recruits in. They just, who knows? I can't explain why every year since you tell me, what is it, 2013, 2012?
It's
When's the last
12.
time they
Yeah, 2012.
2012, last time they made quarters? It's crazy that it's been that long. It's inexplicable to me, when you're pulling in guys like, Geller, and we go on and
Fawcett,
on. Well,
Kumar, obviously
yeah,
all the guys they have now.
yeah. Like how does that happen? So yeah,
Barry.
they're on the hot seat. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you my pick for the hot seat. Sneaky here is Florida.
Yeah, they were in my tier 1 as well.
We make the transition from Brian Shelton leaving to Adam Steinberg coming, and they get a decent roster here this year. It just frankly doesn't perform. And then all of a sudden, you get Nate Bonetto leaves, Aiden Kim leaves. There were rumors about other guys, but no, it looks like Jin and Gannison are staying. But and there were things that went on with the program that, a lot of things just overall with the Steinberg transition that I think has made it difficult. We've got a complete change under Steiny of the coaching staff, right? Both Matt Clore and Scotty Perlman leaving. We're bringing in Anthony Rossi and Max Kohler. Just a lot of changes there to react that are 1 year after the first big set of changes. And I think it's something that's going to be looked at. And I don't think Scott Strickland as the AD there is going to be super content with, yeah, let's have a few years like that. There's going to be pressure to win at Florida. And if Steiny doesn't figure out how to turn things around there, I think that program's, they're definitely going to be on the hot seat.
They finished 26 with all the turnover, so not a terrible year 1, obviously, for Coach Steinberg. But yeah, 2 new coaches, obviously new players coming in. My tier 1, again, I had a list on the hot seat where they had a Georgia, right? They're looking for a bounce back. NCAA's coming in 2 years. Florida State, where do they go next? They're not on a hot seat. I'm just curious. Oklahoma, a lot of turnover on that roster. Good recruiting class coming in, though. A&M, they've had a lot of talent. And again, like they've been in the top 16 mix, but they're a team I'm curious. Where are they headed? Arizona State, you got one more year with Murphy. Pepperdine, I think that's a team I'm curious where they're headed. A really good recruiting class coming in. Illinois as well. Just again, a lot of talent. Some injuries have screwed things up, but all teams I'm looking at closely. My tier one, though, I mentioned Stanford. You mentioned Florida. UCLA's got a really good recruiting class. It's just been too long since they've been in the mix. It's time. USC, just coming off of a mixed tournament, they have to be on this list. And then Baylor, just because they're hosting everything next year. So there's obviously going to be a lot of eyes on that program all season long. That would be my list of programs to keep in mind as we head towards 2024. Programs to watch, though. Chris Halioris, as we head towards the new season. Again, we've mentioned a lot of the storylines already. Pepperdine, Baylor, I have UCF. They have the number 2 recruiting class, according to tennisrecruiting.net, or I think it's number 2, if not number 3. Yeah, no, it's number 3. I apologize. Pepperdine's number 2, so 2 to watch. UCLA's number 4 on that list. South Carolina's number 6 on that list. NC State, I think they could be really good next year. UCSB, a really good recruiting class. Vanderbilt's got a good class coming in as well. Programs to watch in transition seasons. Virginia, TCU, Arizona, that's got a really good class coming in. Ohio State with Jansen, Kim, Lee, obviously a transition season. Tennessee, a transition season as well. Those are all teams on my program to watch transition list. But here's my tier one: Duke, Texas, Wake Forest, and all Ivy League teams. Chris Halioris, is your program to watch on that list? If so, or if not, who is it?
It is not on your tier one list. My program to watch is UCLA.
Who, by the way, for those that don't know, Kalen Bagoon, who just made a Challenger quarterfinal, Junior French Open champion as well. He is coming into UCLA, as is blue chip Rudy Kwan.
Yeah, Kwan, arguably the better prospect of the
Crazy.
two. And Bagoon just won the French Open Juniors. And then you've still got like Spencer Johnson and Alexander Hoogmartins. I mean, look, if both of those guys come, and there's some talk about, hey, after, Bagoon coming off the French Open Juniors title, is he actually still going to come, et cetera? I don't know. All I'm saying is if they both come, as I, kind of hope and expect that they would, yeah, this is definitely a team to watch. And I say, to me, team to watch, a couple things there. A potential huge jump from where they were from last year to this, kind of like the Michigan State type jump, right? So that makes them a team to watch. I'm not going to argue. I know who your pick is. I'm not going to argue with that at all either. It's for a different reason, an amazingly fun team to watch. But I'm looking at this as a team with a real chance to make a monster gain in the polls and actually do something here.
The case for Texas, they lose Spizzirri, Harper, Waldy, Braswell. They might be better next year relative to the field. Wake Forest, again, what are they doing this offseason? What do they have come in? Fun to watch. All Ivy League teams are recruiting well, and obviously now we see an Ivy League team lose a Cooper Williams as he heads to Duke, who has to be the program because they're going to lose Johns, they're going to lose Zhang, they're going to lose Heller, they're going to lose this core that got them back into top 16 relevance. And they might be better next year with Cooper coming in, with Rodinas coming back, Visser aging another year, more experience for the Crews, obviously, a whole wave of other transfers we're going to get into on tomorrow's show as well. I think it's pretty obvious why they're on this list for me. And again, they're a team we'll spend more time talking about tomorrow, Chris. But yeah, that again, TJ Pura coming in as well. Like, how are you not entertained?
Yeah, for sure. The most
teams didn't pick them today in the kickoff draft.
Yeah, the most entertaining team to keep an eye on. And I think, to your point, I think they're better. I think they are better. Look, this year they were a top 3, solid top 3 with Johns, Rodinas, Zhang, and then like what happens at 4 through 6, you don't know. They keep Rodinas. They've swapped Johns and Zhang for Cooper Williams and Gerard Planeas. Okay, I will argue at worst, that's even. At best, they actually got better there. But, let's just call it even. But then they have 4 other transfers plus 2 recruits coming in that are going to make their 4 through 6 better. And they have options now with guys like Petrovic, who's now sat a year after playing at Florida State, and everybody else that they've brought in. Their 4 through 6 will unquestionably be better next year. So even if you take the worst case of our top 3 is the same, our 4 through 6 is better, they're a better team that was already a top 16 team. And it's just going to be amazingly fun to watch because they may literally be playing a team that only has one guy from last year playing this year, which is Pedro Rodines. And everybody, the other 5 spots may all be new players.
I couldn't agree with you more. Again, they are the team. That's why they're my program to watch as we move forward. All right. Last but not least, biggest what ifs. Chris Halioris, you rank these out of 10. Ready?
All right.
What if João Fonseca doesn't make the Rio quarterfinals? I think that's at least a 3 out of 10.
And I'll give it a 2 or a 3. He's not coming no matter what. He's done too many other things.
Impacts us a lot. What if Pacific doesn't beat San Diego?
I don't know that it necessarily impacts a ton. I think I don't think a lot of things change other than it was
San Diego hosts.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't run the numbers. I don't think I still don't think they get there.
All right, fair enough. What if Nino Aaron Schneider is healthy?
This is like a great what if for you and me.
1 out of 10. What if Max Basing is healthy?
I mean, it's Stanford.
I think that's at least a 4, though.
That is at least I'll give you a 4 or even a 5 there potentially.
Yeah. What if Gorsny is just healthy the whole season?
I mean, my first inclination is 0. They won the damn title. What else do you want?
I think that's fair. What if Johannes Monday serves it out against Spizzirri?
Ooh, I mean, that gets a lot more interesting. Like that could be like a 6 or a 7. I still don't think they had the team to go all the way, but man, oh man, does it change the picture of things. And to some extent, I'm almost I can't say that I'm happy he didn't because I would have, I don't want to say that, but man, we got such a good final. We got such a good final with Texas and TCU that I don't know that a Tennessee team could have done that.
Here's what I'm saying. It's a 5 out of 10 because TCU won anyways. Like, yeah, I would have made the final different, but TCU beat Texas no matter what.
Yeah, I think TCU still
a fascinating moment because Texas probably does lose that match given how things were trending on the Harper court. What if PY was healthy?
Now we're talking. That's like
an 8 out of 10 because Braswell and Harper are now at 3 doubles, and it's a different match.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I agree. Here's the biggest one. What if Rodesh doesn't catch mono?
Oh, man.
I would have liked to see that Virginia team go out, or just more broadly, what if Virginia was healthy at all this season? Like, that's the biggest what if, is they didn't even have a chance to defend their title because at indoors, Iñaki was one shoulder, and at outdoors, Rodesh had mono.
Yeah, the problem, I don't even care about the rest of the year because look, all Virginia is after is that national title, and that's what every school wants. And I would have loved to see, I'll give you a 10 there only because I don't know if it would have changed anything, but I sure as hell wanted to see if Virginia was going to be able to make a run with their team. And, a hampered Iñaki, look, they only got to play the match with Wake, and Iñaki managed to win the match on one shoulder after getting bageled.
And one hamstring.
One shoulder, one hamstring, couldn't even move from one corner to the next, wins his match. You throw Rodesh in there. Yeah, who knows what happens? I feel robbed just to not have seen it, as well as to see that that's the way this class goes out.
The biggest what if, and again, Von der Schulenburg wasn't healthy all season. Rodesh isn't healthy yet. No one was healthy, and they got the piece they needed. Dietrich was a viable Getz replacement. And again, they had the opportunity to chase history, a three-peat.
I still want to throw in, though, I still want to throw in, and what if Hashimoto doesn't cramp?
It's not a bad one either. Like, again, the difference is TCU won. So unless it's specific TCU related, that's where it gets hard. The PY
it's not going to change the result. Yep.
PY and Rodesh are the most interesting because PY has a direct impact on the doubles lineup played in the final. Rodesh, obviously, we just didn't get to see healthy Virginia, period. But still, as I look overall, Chris Halioris, really good year of college tennis. And again, I think my award ballot destroyed yours. I think it's the perfect archive to record this 2024 season. That said, any final thoughts before we wrap today's show and put a bow on the 2024 year?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put your award ballot right where I'm about to head after this.
I like
No,
it.
yeah, this is it's fun. I
Ooh,
mean,
good one from Scotty B. What if Connor Thompson's healthy and South Carolina's healthy? That's a good one.
and we're
Because
we're
they
gonna
had
get
some
to see
pieces.
that next year, Scotty.
Yeah, but no Toby.
Yeah, no Toby, but we should see Connor back next year.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
yeah, what we could throw in there. What if Boyton got eligible?
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's a good one. I should have had that on my list.
yeah,
Because I'll
I
tell you
mean,
what,
with
if
a
he
Wake team that
is,
made the
that's a
final
really good
final
one,
four,
Chris Halioris.
wow,
That's a really good one.
I mean, that would have been tremendous.
What
Yeah.
if Bruno/Franco was able to play?
Yeah.
That would have been
Yeah.
great.
If Franco and Boyton eligible for that team. Whoa. Yeah.
Ooh.
Or yeah,
Yeah, that's the fun stuff. All right. Well,
that's
that's the
it.
perfect tease for tomorrow. Where again, we got to get into some roster transition news. We got to get into some coaching transition news, and then we got to talk quick kickoff draft. So join us tomorrow night for another show. Excuse me, that'll be a podcast. So look for it on the Great Shot podcast feed. Chris Halioris again, 2024 officially in the books. What a season it was. A thank you to you for all the broadcasting you do. A thank you to our super producer Daniel Westoff. Makes everything you see possible. And again, players, coaches, fans of the college tennis universe, we wouldn't do this without you. The support we get from all of you, it means the world to us every season. Just a greater and greater joy. And that's why we will continue to crank on towards another year that will be upon us before we know it. That said, we got some fun stuff planned for the summer as well. So make sure you stick around. That said, signing off for now for the fantastic Chris Halioris, our super producer Daniel Westoff, and all of us here at both Crack Rackets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin, Chris Halioris. What do we tell our listeners?
Hey, great shot.
And we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.